The dream of the 70s is alive and well in the music of Greta Van Fleet. Are these young throwback rockers ready to shake off the ghosts of their legendary forebearers to blaze their own trail? My review of The Battle at Garden's Gate is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle, and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. Now, before we get into the new album, I want to let you know that if you stick around to the end of this video, we will literally get into the album. I'll share an unboxing of The Battle at Garden's Gate so you can get a preview of what you get with a physical copy. Lots of interesting fantasy-style artwork in the booklet to check out here. And if you do want to add the CD or vinyl to your collection, be sure to look for the Amazon order link in the description below. Going into their second full-length album, there was undoubtedly an enormous weight on the shoulders of Greta Van Fleet. To be fair, this young retro rock act placed most of the burden upon themselves. There's been an enormous amount of talk about how their sound on the debut album leans so heavily on that of their legendary classic rock forebearers. I don't for one moment think that's accidental. Greta Van Fleet sounds the way they do because that's the way Greta Van Fleet wants to sound. And honestly, I say, why not? After all, it seems like all the trademark new wave and synth sounds of the 80s have been mined extensively over the past decade or so. Is there any denying one of the biggest selling albums of the past year is utterly steeped in nostalgic sounds from that decade? So why not revisit the epic sounds of 70s classic rock? Honestly, if as many acts paid homage to that decade as they do to the 80s, would Greta Van Fleet still be in any way controversial? Well, maybe, but perhaps only because they're so good at what they do. And let's be clear about what they do. This is not a band that is interested in blending retro vibes with contemporary sounds. On the contrary, Greta Van Fleet is a 70s rock band. They're not trying to be a 2020s band at all. Conceptually, I'm okay with that. But one of my main criticisms of the band on Anthem of the Peaceful Army was that it felt like they were trying too hard to sound like a few very specific acts from that era. Mission accomplished, I suppose. But what I wanted to see next from the band was growth. And I think we get that on the new album. The Battle at Garden's Gate definitely feels like the band is starting to settle into their sound, more often paying homage to classic rock's greatest decade than specifically to classic rock's greatest bands. The album opens with Heat Above, a song that was released as a single a few months ago. When I reviewed the song on its own, I said I thought it was a track that may work better as an album opener than a single. I have to admit, though, that in the weeks since the song was released, I grew to like it even more on its own. Hearing it now within the context of the entire album, I will say that it is indeed a great opening number, but also one of the best tracks on the album. It has a great mix of interesting melodies and instrumentations that set a high standard for the rest of the songs to follow. It's a standard that My Way Soon at track 2 does a nice job of sustaining. It's a great straight-up 70s rocker, more in the vein of Grand Funk Railroad or the Guess Who than some of the epic bands of that era. I really love Daniel Wagner's drumming here. The breakdowns during the final chorus are really cool, though there may be one too many if I'm being honest. The whole track has a great groove that draws me in every time. It has to be said, though, that from a lyrical perspective, Greta Van Fleet is far from deep. Here we get the astute observation, there are so many people. Some are much younger people, some are so old. According to Google, that's a correct statement. Greta Van Fleet slows things down with broken bells. I love some of the sonic textures the band weaves here, with some nice interplay between the acoustic guitar and the strings. On the other hand, there's more than a few moments where Josh Kiska pushes a bit too hard with his vocals, adding in a bit of growl when it might be better just to, sing. This song is also the first of many on the album that are truly saved by the bridge. The first half of the song is fine, but there's not a lot of melody to play with. Then the bridge drops, and the band suddenly explores all these new sounds and directions. Jacob Kiska even delivers a truly epic guitar solo here. But the song would ultimately be very flat, if not for the bridge. Alright, so I really wanted to avoid making any Led Zeppelin references, but the guys have kind of forced my hand here. It's practically inescapable to compare Built by Nations to Zeppelin's classic track Black Dog. The central guitar riff of this song is clearly influenced by it, as are the rhythmic change-ups on the chorus. Still, it's a great groove with a fairly decent hook on the chorus. It must be said, though, that Josh Kiszka's over-reliance on woes as a vocal crutch starts to wear thin here. Again, there's a lot more to come. And along those lines, as we move into the song Age of Machine, now is probably a good time to mention the reoccurring themes of mysticism and spirituality in the lyrics as well. Those were a common trope of some of the epic bands of the 70s, so it's no surprise to hear that kind of thing spread across the music of Greta Van Fleet as well. And not just the music, by the way. If you watch my unboxing at the end of this video, you'll see the album booklet is full of fantasy artwork that feels straight out of Lord of the Rings. In any case, Age of Machines certainly aims for that level of lyrical mysticism, though more often than not it feels like it's been filtered through their musical influences rather than directly from any literature. Sonically, I think this is a very effective piece of music, but I do start to wish Josh Kiszka had more substantive lyrics to balance his powerhouse vocals. Tears of Rain brings some interesting new textures to the music. There's some beautiful piano accents in this song, and a guitar solo that is almost Clapton-esque. Yes, the lyrics continue the themes of spirituality as well as dime store environmentalism, but Kiszka's soaring vocals somehow manage to make it all sound more believable. I do like the song, but I will gripe that the final piano chord gives the song too tidy of an ending. We hear the thunderstorms begin to roll in, and that should have been enough. As we enter the second half of the album, let me say that the Battle of Garden's Gate is extremely front-loaded. All of the early singles come from the first half, and it's no surprise they're some of the best songs on the album. If this had been another EP, it could have ended very nicely with Tears of Rain. Everything on side 2 feels literally like side 2 songs, or B-sides. Stardust Chords and Light My Love both suffer from a sort of sameness syndrome. Not same as each other necessarily, but same as things we've heard before in the song cycle. Neither has a particularly strong hook, and the instrumental embellishments employed here have already been used to better effect on earlier songs, making these two tracks a bit forgettable. Following those two filler tracks, Caravel is a bit of a wake-up call. I love the opening drums and guitar riffs. There's a lot of cool stuff happening musically on the verse and the pre-chorus. But then the chorus itself falls a bit short from that build-up, never reaching the epic heights it seems to aim for. Once again, though, the band delivers a stellar bridge to save the day. I love the breakdown at the end and the rhythmic change-ups. Again, hats off to Daniel Wagner for some terrific drumming here. Next up, the Barbarians slips back into that feeling of sameness that plagued earlier tracks, and even a strong bridge followed by a false ending isn't enough to pull the song from the ranks of album filler. But on Trip the Light Fantastic, we do get some decent melodic stuff relative to much of the later half of this album. The vocals are strong here, although they verge on getting bogged down in cheesy dime store spirituality. Their use of a backing choir of sorts feels fresh enough to me that I'm willing to go along with it, though. It's a nice touch, used sparingly enough that it works. At nearly 9 minutes in length, album closer The Weight of Dreams seems to want to carve itself into a monument of epic rock proportions. There's a cool acoustic guitar opening reminiscent of Crazy on You that provides a nice touch, but the musical substance of the song itself runs out of steam about halfway through its runtime. That's when the band reaches into their bag of tricks one more time for that killer bridge magic that's worked so well before. From here, the track evolves into a monster coda with an epic guitar solo, surging strings, and a pounding percussion. Then it all concludes with a reprise of the acoustic theme that opened the track. For the second half of the song alone, it's a satisfying climax, but I wish the build-up had been more compelling. In spite of the fact that not every song on the album is a winner, I think it actually bodes well for the band. I think they succeed more often than not, and that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Still, I think it could have been a stronger effort if a couple of those parts had been left out. This would have been a more effective album at, say, 10 tracks instead of 12. Regardless, it's clear the band are evolving and growing as musicians. The playing here is arguably stronger than anything on their previous efforts. Yet Josh Kiska still has some maturing to do as a vocalist. His range is astonishing, and at times even breathtaking. But not every chorus on every song needs the kind of kitchen sink approach he employs to the point of exhaustion. On top of that, the lyrics, as cliche as they often are frequently incomprehensible from his lack of articulation. In any case, I no longer get the feeling these guys are trying to be a tribute act, and more that, as I said earlier, they want to be an authentic 70s rock band. This is the kind of album they might have made during that era. It's got its hits, and it's got its filler. So did many of the albums of that time and of today. And truth be told, there's a lot of classic rock fans out there that have lamented for years that rock music today ain't what it used to be. For those fans, I give you Greta Van Fleet. Long may they rock. So I'm giving The Battle at Garden's Gate an X rating of 7 out of 10. It's a satisfying rock and roll experience that brings back the sounds of yesterday by being unlike anything else being made today. Alright, as promised, here's a look at the CD version of The Battle at Garden's Gate, the second full-length album from Greta Van Fleet. Here's a look at the unwrapped front cover and the spine and the back cover. Here's a look inside the gatefold, very Lord of the Rings style artwork there. Looking through the booklet, we find even more of that style art. Here's pages 2 and 3. 4 and 5, 6 and 7, pages 8 and 9, 10 and 11, 12 and 13, and here's the band on pages 14 and 15. Finally, here's a look at the CD itself. So there you go, The Battle at Garden's Gate by Greta Van Fleet. If you want to add a copy to your music collection, be sure to look for the Amazon ordering links in the description below. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Plus, check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.